There is no more stupid idea than this.
The Forbidden City in Beijing faced the biggest crisis.
Crisis?
You are simply a waste.
So the painting was burned?
Hello everyone. This is the first show of our channel.
Warm congratulations on the launch of the channel.
Today we start the first series of the channel, which is the Stories of Chinese Regions series. In this series, we will briefly introduce China's 34 administrative regions in order. At the same time, we will select a representative story from each administrative region to explain.
There is no more stupid idea than this. Can you talk about something interesting?
Because China is vast, viewers who don't know much about China can learn about it.
Is there anyone who doesn't know about the great and correct China? Please introduce China's great invention that leads the world again.
China's greatest invention is inventing people like you who are full of inexplicable confidence.
What are you talking about? Are you scolding me?
No, what I mean is, no matter what the theme is. With such an excellent host like you, it will definitely be popular.
Well, since you said that, I reluctantly agree with your stupid idea. So as the first episode, which region of the Great China are we going to talk about today?
Today we are going to talk about a beautiful island, Taiwan.
Huh. I'm too familiar with this.
Do you know a lot about Taiwan?
Of course, Taiwan is an inseparable part of the sacred China.
Oh. It seems that you have some understanding, huh?
Taiwan is an inseparable part of the sacred China.
And then?
Taiwan is an inseparable part of the sacred China.
Is that the only sentence you know?
Of course not. I also know that Taiwan invented milk tea, and.
You are simply a waste. I have to introduce it. Taiwan is an island located along the southeast coast of China. Taiwan has a population of 24 million people and a developed economy. In the semiconductor and electronics industries, especially in the field of integrated circuits and computer hardware, Taiwan is a global leader.
I know this. Taiwan's laptops and chips are very famous.
In addition, Taiwan also has magnificent natural landscapes, such as Yangmingshan National Park with beautiful hot springs, Alishan with maple leaves and sea of clouds. There is also the rugged Taroko National Park and the legendary Sun Moon Lake.
Why is it called the legendary Sun Moon Lake?
Because Sun Moon Lake is written into primary school textbooks and is one of the most famous attractions in China.
Great, Taiwan is really beautiful. I also know that Taiwan has a lot of delicious food.
Of course, Taiwan is known as a paradise for food. In addition to the pearl milk tea you just mentioned, Taiwan also has silong bao, beef noodles, stinky tofu, chicken chops, and countless other delicious foods. The various night markets in Taipei are also must-visit places for tourists.
Taiwan is really great. It's like a dream home.
Therefore, China calls Taiwan China's treasure. Speaking of treasures, this is the theme we are going to talk about today, China's most famous treasures.
Is China's most famous treasure in Taiwan? Shouldn't it be in the Forbidden City in Beijing?
This has to start with the most powerful collector in Chinese history.
Is it a tycoon?
No, the most powerful collector in Chinese history is an emperor of the Qing dynasty. His name is Qianlong.
Why is he the most powerful collector?
2 reasons. One is that he likes to collect, and the other is that he is the emperor.
So, are there no treasures in China that he can't get?
Exactly. Emperor Qianlong was a very powerful antique appraisal expert, so everyone offered him treasures. At the same time, he also has a bad hobby, which is to like to write his name on the treasures.
Oh. Then aren't the treasures all destroyed?
Yes, but because he is the emperor, no one can stop him. He was the emperor for 60 years, and his home became the largest treasury in China.
Doesn't he live in the Forbidden City in Beijing? Why would the treasures go to Taiwan?
Yes, the original treasures were all stored in the Forbidden City in Beijing. But more than 100 years after his death, the Forbidden City in Beijing faced the biggest crisis.
Crisis?
In 1931, the Japanese sent troops to Manchuria, and China was about to be fully invaded.
I see. The despicable Japanese invaders.
Seeing that Beijing was about to fall. So the experts of the Forbidden City packed all the treasures of the Forbidden City into boxes, a total of 13,791 boxes.
Wow, so many treasures. The emperor is really rich.
These treasures were first transported to Shanghai. But soon Shanghai was also about to become a battlefield, and these treasures were transported to western Chinese cities in batches. It was not until the victory of the anti-Japanese war that these cultural relics were returned to Nanjing.
During the transportation of these treasures, were they not stolen and sold privately?
No, the experts at that time were very responsible. These treasures are not only valuable, but they are also symbols of Chinese culture. The experts at that time put in a lot of sweat and effort for the continuation of Chinese culture.
The spirit of these experts is really touching.
But the good times didn't last long, and China soon started a civil war. At that time, two parties in China were vying for control of China. One was the Communist Party and the other was the Kuomintang. The original Chinese government was controlled by the Kuomintang. And soon, they were defeated by the army of the Communist Party and planned to retreat to Taiwan to continue to defend. Therefore, they planned to transport these treasures of the Forbidden City to Taiwan. But because it needs to be shipped to Taiwan, only a part of the most exquisite treasures can be sent to Taiwan. Therefore, they carefully selected 2,972 boxes of treasures and transported them to Taiwan on a warship.
So this is the reason why the treasures of the Forbidden City came to Taiwan.
Now, the museums in Beijing and Nanjing preserve 78% of the original treasures. The selected 600,000 exquisite treasures are preserved in Taiwan.
Where are these 600,000 treasures now in Taiwan?
15 years after these treasures came to Taiwan, they were placed in the National Palace Museum in Taipei in 1965. Now this museum is one of the most influential museums in the world. At the same time, it is also one of the must-visit attractions for tourists to Taiwan. Next, I am going to introduce the treasure of this museum, the most famous treasure in China.
I've heard of this. It's that cabbage and that piece of meat.
Yes, but don't worry, I will introduce them one by one. First is the Jadeite cabbage. This is a piece of jade carved into the shape of a cabbage, showing a very advanced carving craft.
It feels very crystal clear.
Actually, this was originally a flawed jade stone, half green and half white. But the carver used the original color of the jade to carve this exquisite work. This treasure is said to be the most popular treasure voted on the internet, and it can be said to be the most popular treasure.
There are even two small insects carved on the cabbage leaves.
Yes, this treasure was originally stored in the Dianhe Palace of the Forbidden City. It was the dowry of the Jinfei, the wife of the Guangxu Emperor of the Qing dynasty.
Is this Jinfei? The emperor's wife doesn't seem to be beautiful.
In ancient Chinese poetry, the meaning of the two small insects on the cabbage leaves is a full house of descendants.
Did she finally have children with the emperor?
No, the emperor didn't like her.
Is it because she is not good-looking?
Because Emperor Guangxu liked her sister more, her sister Jinfei was also the wife of Emperor Guangxu.
Did the emperor and her sister finally have children?
No, they were both killed by Empress Dowager Cixi in the end.
Oh. This is too tragic.
Now let's look at another most popular treasure, meat-shaped stone. This is a stone that looks like roast meat.
It's exactly like roast meat.
This meat-shaped stone was discovered in Inner Mongolia, China during the Qing dynasty and was presented to the emperor as a tribute. The Jadeite cabbage and meat-shaped stone can be said to be the most popular treasures in China. But do you know that they are actually not the most precious and rare treasures?
Eh? Why is that?
Although these two treasures are very popular as cultural relics, they are both from the Qing dynasty. The Qing dynasty is only 300 years away from now, and as cultural relics, they are still relatively young.
In that case, what is the rarest treasure?
Look at this thing.
What is this? Isn't this a pot? Is it used to cook the cabbage and meat just now?
Of course not. This is called Mao Gong Ding, a cultural relic from the Western Zhou dynasty in China. It is one of the most precious bronzes in China, dating back 2,800 years from now.
Wow, in this way, the cabbage just now only has a history of 300 years. It belongs to fresh cabbage.
Although many bronzes have been unearthed in China, this tripod is precious because there are inscriptions on it. There is an inscription of 500 characters inside this tripod, recording the story of this tripod.
What story is written in it?
It wrote that the king at that time asked a person named Mao Gong to help him govern the country. Mao Gong made this tripod to thank the king.
So this tripod is called Mao Gong Ding, I see.
In addition to this Mao Gong Ding, the National Palace Museum in Taipei also has many various rare bronzes. These bronzes are probably about 3,000 years away from now.
So, the most valuable things in the National Palace Museum in Taipei are these bronzes?
No, because it was difficult to move large cultural relics to Taiwan at that time. So the focus was on selecting calligraphy and porcelain. These are the most precious things in the National Palace Museum in Taipei. Look at this painting. This painting is called Dwelling in the Fuchun Mountains. It is one of the two most famous paintings in China, and the other painting of the same name is called Along the River during the Qingming Festival.
This painting looks ordinary. What's so good about it?
This painting was painted by an old man named Huang Gongwang 1,000 years ago. When he was 80 years old, he observed the scenery of the Fuchun River for 3 years. And then spent another 4 years painting this painting, a total of 7 years. The whole painting is made of black ink, but it shows the scenery of the 4 seasons of the Fuchun River in a year. This painting is so beautiful that it's known as China's #1 landscape painting. Once, a collector who loved this painting so much that he even slept with it. When he was about to die, he wanted to be buried with this painting, so he threw it into a brazier.
Oh. So the painting was burned?
His family quickly rescued the painting from the brazier, but unfortunately, it had already been burned into 2 sections. The original painting was 7 meters long. After being burned, the longer section, which is 6 meters, is preserved in the Taipei Palace Museum. The shorter section, which is only half a meter, is preserved in the Zhejiang Museum on the mainland. In addition, the Taipei Palace Museum also preserves a large number of authentic works of various calligraphers and painters from the Tang and Song dynasties.
The most prosperous period of Chinese calligraphy and painting was during the Tang and Song dynasties.
Yes, so these calligraphy and painting works can be said to be the top level in China.
But another famous painting, Along the River during the Qingming Festival, is in the Forbidden City in Beijing. Does the Taipei Palace Museum have any unique treasures in the world?
Yes, that would be porcelain. First, let's talk about some knowledge of porcelain. There are 5 types of antique porcelain in China that are most valuable, and among these 5 valuable porcelains, Ru Kiln is the most rare and valuable. It can be said that Ru Kiln is the Rolls-Royce of Chinese porcelain. Speaking of Ru Kiln, we have to mention a legendary emperor from 1,000 years ago, Emperor Huizong of Song. He is a famous artist in China, and his painting and calligraphy are the top in China. One day after the rain, he saw that the sky was of blue color. He particularly liked this color and wished that his porcelain could be made in this color. Therefore, porcelain experts all over China began to research whether they could make porcelain of this sky blue color. Finally, in Ruzhou in Hunan, they made porcelain of this color, so it's called a Ru Kiln.
Isn't this color just ordinary blue? What's so special about it?
Let's take a closer look at this Ru Kiln. At first glance from a distance, it is bluish. But if you look closely, you'll find that its color is greenish. However, after observing for a while, you will find that it reveals a pink color from within.
Pink? I didn't see that.
If you observe with a magnifying glass, you will also find that its surface flashes with tiny points of light, like the twinkling stars in the sky. This is the most magical part of Ru Kiln. The output of Ru Kiln is very low, and it was specially supplied to Emperor Huizong of Song for his enjoyment.
So it was the highest grade of porcelain in China as soon as it was produced?
Yes, and after Emperor Huizong of Song had been emperor for 20 years, the country was invaded.
Was it invaded by another country?
Yes, Emperor Huizong was captured, and the technology of Ru Kiln porcelain was also lost due to the chaos of war.
So what's the secret to making Ru porcelain?
It's agate. They ground agate into powder and added it to the porcelain. It wasn't until modern times that people rediscovered the mystery. Therefore, the remaining Uru Kiln porcelain is very precious, and only more than 60 pieces have been found in the world. Each piece is priceless. Currently, the Taipei Palace Museum preserves 21 pieces, and the Beijing Palace Museum preserves 17 pieces. And the Taipei Palace Museum also has a unique Uru Kiln porcelain piece in the world.
Oh. What's it like?
It's this one.
It seems very ordinary. Is it a bathtub?
No, it's only the size of a bowl. Its original use is unknown. One theory is that it was used to plant daffodils. Later, Emperor Qianlong collected this bowl, and he was also pondering what this bowl was used for. Later, he seemed to understand. He believed that this bowl was used by Emperor Huizong of Song to feed cats and dogs. He wrote this discovery into a poem and engraved it on the back of this bowl.
He really likes to destroy cultural relics.
He also thought this treasure was very rare at the time, so he specially made a base for it.
Where exactly is this cat food bowl rare?
Let's take a closer look at the Uru Kiln porcelain. You will find that almost every piece of porcelain has a cracks on the surface.
It seems true, every one of them is cracked.
This is a feature of Uru Kiln porcelain. As time goes by, the surface will keep cracking. Scientists have found that as long as it is Uru Kiln, there will be cracks like snowflakes or cicada wings.
But the cat food bowl just now doesn't seem to be cracked?
Yes, so it is the only Uru Kiln porcelain in the world that has not cracked. Its scientific name is called Uru Kiln non-patterned Narcissus basin. Because it is a truly unique existence, it is indeed the best of Chinese porcelain.
That's great. So when will these treasures be transported back to mainland China?
What are you talking about? That's impossible, isn't it?